For the first questions, why do you write? Tell us the reason, including when you started writing. What are your inspirations in writing? Um, if you are referring to my writings, which I intend to publish, the first time that I considered publishing my works was in 2006. It was during that time when I was invited to become member of the Kabulig Bicol, one of I think the only existing um, writers organization in Bicol during that time. And one of the requirements for me to become member is for me to write in the Bicol language. And it's noteworthy to mention, of course, Mrs. Jocelyn Bisunya, the chairperson of the Kabulig and Bicol Cultural Network by then, who was also a member of the Kabulig Bicol. And she invited me to become member of the Kabulig. At first, I didn't want to become member because I haven't tried writing that time in Bicol. Most of my writings in publications, in journal, and in other forms of writing, I usually use the English language or the Tagalog language. But when she invited me to become a member of the Kabulig, I said, I'm going to try first writing Bicol. And then when I uh, had a chance to rediscover my language, my native tongue, the Bicol language, it was an epiphany for me to understand that there is a lot of things to discover about writing using the language, using the Bicol language. And that was the reason why from then on I started listening to people talking in jeepney or anywhere, and try to understand the language that they were using. And if there are Bicol language that I heard, which is very important or that I can use in my writing, I jot them down. And that's the time when I was able to write a lot of Bicol poetry. And the theme of the Bicol poetry that I wrote was related to, of course, my place, the kind of life that we have in San Roque, Calabanga, Camarines Sur, where most of the dwellers there are farmers and fishermen. And it's also the reason why the metaphor of the poem that I wrote are all about farming, fishing, and rural life. If I'm going to be asked that time before I get published my first book, uh, my inspiration then was the language itself. I'd like to revisit, relearn my language, my Bicol language. But now, after several years, I think my inspiration now is to write a lot of things in Bicol. It could be poetry, it could be short stories or novels and other genre. But this is now being inspired by people in the community, people who have no voice. And I said to myself that the writings that I'm going to do in the future will be their voices. That I will be able to recreate their characters, rewrite things about their lives. And that was also the reason why this book was published in 2007. The Gipsaw sa Salakap, which is my very first book. And then it was followed by several job books. If you're going to have the chance to read this book, probably some of the libraries in Calabanga and in Nagasiki has this book. You will find out that the language, the kind of Bikol language that I'm using is from Bikol Central, and this book is a little bit different from uh, Bicol books, because some of the vocabularies that you're going to look at to find from this book are um, a little bit sinauna. Uh, the language, some of the words are hard to understand if you're not going to talk to some people who have the idea of what the word meant. I think the literary artists right now and the literary pieces that are being produced by Bicol writers are very relevant to our time. First, the influence of other language to Bicolanos is very evident, and a lot of people in Bicol would be talking in Tagalog and in English now. And when they start um, using the language, the Bicolano language again, when they talk, it's already it's not simply by talking; it's also from writing, because I am reading a lot of artworks in Parasurat Bicol na Incorporated, and the literary works there that they are submitting or using the variants of the language now. Meaning to say, it's not purely Bicol anymore. It's a mixed language between Bicolano language and Tagalog and English. And sometimes it's hard for them to use the pure Bicol. But on the other hand, there are writers and lecturers who would probably understand the reason why, because it's developmental. And you would say the language is not stagnant. It continues to develop through time. A lot of people then, from the publication of my first book to the next books that I wrote, I encountered a lot of researchers who would be coming to the house and ask me for interviews and for guestings, and some would ask me to deliver some lecture on creative writing. And they're always asking me what could be my advice to the budding writers right now. There is always a notion that when you are a writer, a creative writer, you would probably feel first the inferiority of what you write compared to other writers that you already have been reading for quite some time. Now, it's important for the budding writers to keep on writing. Me, I started writing when I was fourth year high school. I kept a lot of journals. I have 47 journals now. It contains a lot of scribbling. It could sometimes be artworks. I never stop living the day without writing something on the journal. So it's an encouragement for the budding writers to keep on writing, and later on, when there is an opportunity to make your writings published or become public, or probably you would be joining some of the writing contests. Right now, because of the pandemic, people cannot go out, and most of the times the people are staying at home using the social media as their outlet for socialization, and most of the times texting makes them write. And um, there are times that writings by simply just texting other people might be boring for a while, and so some would venture on writing poetry, writing short stories, and a lot more. Right now, it's noteworthy to mention that there are a lot of Bicol writers. The Bicolano writing is having its flourishing time uh, for the last decade, I guess. There are a lot of publishers, there are a lot of writers coming out, there are a lot of books get published in Bicol. And so, and one of the things that probably could be an opportunity for the budding writers is to participate in some activities online for the submission of their write-ups, particularly the Para Surat Bicol having their monthly poetry contest, and it's now on year 2. I also understand that the Kabulig Bicol is also having activities on writing for the new writers, and a lot more from the different provinces in Albay, in Catanduanes, in Masbate, and in Camarines Norte. There are organizations existing that are trying to help the budding writers to keep on writing, uh, improve their craft in writing, and participate in some of the writing activities. And later on, I kept on saying to the participants of the monthly poetry contest in Parasurat Bicolnon to keep on writing. It's not about the prize. It's not about the what's at stake when you write something. What's important there is you have the motivation to write and improve your craft and revise your craft and present it in public so that it will be judged. May not win, or may it win, or may it not win. It doesn't matter. It will leave you a piece, a literary piece, that if it is going to pile up later on, you will find out that you already have a bulk of manuscript that, that you can choose from in order for you to publish your first book. That's one very important thing. Because of the flourishing activities on writing in Bicol right now, I can say that this is a good sign for our local literature to be to be considered as one of the important aspect of arts and culture, of the Bicol arts and culture. And when we value our language, when we value our writings, when we value the creative outputs through literature, this is about leaving behind traces of history, leaving behind traces of artistry, leaving behind artifacts, archives of write-ups that can be read by the new generation. We all know that people come and go, writers come and go. The important thing there is you're creating a legacy. You are leaving a legacy to your people, to the Bicolano people, that later on, if they sum up the existence of the Bicol write-ups, they will find out that there is certain time in the history that love for Bicol literature has emerged again, and it's being um, it's being used by the academy, by the people in the academy. And because of that, I am visionary about how the Bicol literature will be um, emerging in the future, and the kind of writing that we are going to love, the kind of language that we are going to love to revisit and restudy and relearn. Of course, there are writers who would be writing the way people talk now in Bicol. But of course, there are also other people, other writers who are purists who would like to use the language. Now, probably this is the reason why in 2010, April 17, 2010, in my leadership, I have founded Para Surat Bicol Incorporated, and it's now in its 10th year or 11th year by next year by 2021. Before, we never thought that this is going to be a big organization in Bicol. We just simply thought before that we will just be wanting to serve the marginal writers in Bicol. New writers who are trying to hone their craft, trying to improve their way of writing. But now that it has come big, it has board of directors now, it has officers, organizational officers who are manning the activities, and its national writers workshop, the Sarong National Writers Workshop, is on its 10th year now. It is being widely participated by people around the country, particularly Bicolanos, of course. And of course, it's important that in Calabanga, aside from the Parasurat Bicolnan, there is also a writers project being managed by Mr. Hipolito. And if I hear it right, the Central Bicol State University of Agriculture Calabanga campus, together with the local government unit of Calabanga, headed by Mayor Silvero, they are for the first time, they are going to award people in the literary world of Calabanga communities. That's one thing. It's important for for the budding writers, for the writers to understand that they are being recognized by the government. They are being recognized by their LGU, so that the rest of the community of writers will also be inspired to keep on writing, keep on honing and improving their craft. And the most important is these writers would find the right path of their creations, that it came from the grounds, it came from the community. And so I encourage them to recognize their community, the source of what they're writing. It should be an honor always that we recognize the experiences of the people that we write. It came from them, so the gratitude, the honor should all be offered to the community. Thank you.